I want to share with you a little bit about the interim upgrade for MBX version 4. And first of all, I'm going to tell you who I am, what I do, and why I do it. I'm an end user of the Janome Wilcom software, MBX. And I've used the software since Digitiser 10,000. And I've upgraded regularly along the way. It's not always been easy. I haven't always had the pennies. I'm a retired person, and what do? I spend my day playing. And what do I mean by that? Well, I spend my days doing what I enjoy most. Digitizing, playing with my model train sets, and helping people get past go with their Janome Wilcom digitizing software. Why do I do it? Well, when I first started in 1996, I bought a software digitizing program which was made by another company. The manual was abysmal. I went looking for help and discovered that there was no help. There were no such things as embroidery groups, no online tutorials. The only place I could turn was to the manufacturer, and they said, sure, travel up to Manchester and you can do a 4-day course on learning how to use the software. And I said, is that for the manual tools? Oh no, we don't teach those. We only teach automatic digitizing. Well, I didn't want automatic digitizing. I was a free motion embroiderer and I was pretty good at it. But I had a little problem. I had an attack of Bell's palsy. And you can see from my photograph here, and in this photograph I'm now 70. When I bought the program, I wasn't that ancient. This is the unaffected side of my face. I've got an open eye. This is the affected side of my face. I don't have an open eye. And ever since my attack of Bell palsy, I've had problems seeing properly from this eye. So you could say I'm visually impaired as well. You could, but I'd punch you if you said it to me. What it meant was I couldn't continue with my free motion embroidery. It was far too taxing. My Bell's palsy was quite new. I found I wasn't able to concentrate properly because I couldn't see in my peripheral vision exactly where my hands were in relationship to the naked needle. And so I had looked around for an alternative, and I bought this software. Not the Janome Wilcom software, this other named software. I took it home confident that I would be able to use it. I'm a retired arts and crafts specialist, and I'd conquered most things. 5 years later, I gave away my embroidery machine and my software. I had not been able to make sense of the instruction manual. I had tried to find help. It takes a lot for me to go and look for help. I suppose you could say it's a matter of pride. It took an awful lot for me to admit that I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it on my own. I gave up the idea of learning how to digitize. In 2003, several things happened in my life together. I became a widow. My beautiful old Singer sewing machine, which I'd had for over 40 years, finally said, no, you've worked me too hard for the last 40 odd years. And it died. I had retired, and suddenly I was faced with an enormous amount of time, and even though I had started collecting things to do when I retired, when I had the time, I discovered I didn't have the motivation. I could only knit for so many people. I could only sew for so many people, only I didn't have a sewing machine. I still couldn't free motion embroider properly anymore, but I went into my nearest town, and I went to a dealer's, and I looked for a sewing machine. And I stressed the word sewing. I had no intentions of doing any embroidery, thank you. I ended up coming home with a Janome MC 10,000 and the unwanted software. I didn't want anything to do with the software. I put it in a drawer and I forgot it, deliberately. One of the last gifts my husband gave me was my own broadband connection. And I was on the internet and I was looking for something totally unrelated to embroidery or sewing. I don't recall now what it was I was searching for, but I found a little video. And in that little video, somebody was demonstrating how to do a very simple freestanding lace daisy. Now, I had always crocheted, I had free motion embroidered, I had sewn, I had been taught how to weave, I had had fine art training, and I had taught arts and crafts for a number of years. And then there was this yawning gap where there was nothing. I thought I have to find something to do. Much as I loved my husband, I don't really want to join him yet. I've got to fill my time. I found this little video, I watched it, and I thought, hang on, I know it's different names, I know it's different programs, but I struggled with that for 5 years. And now watching this, I don't totally understand, but I do understand a lot more now about how digitizing software works. So I ran upstairs into my room, I opened a drawer, I found the software buried at the back, brought it downstairs. Now I should point out I bought the machine in May 2003. I discovered the little video around October-ish time. I installed my software, I opened it up, I looked at the opening screen and I thought, what do I do now? It was a totally foreign experience to me. So I went to where I had downloaded the little video and I re-watched it. And I looked at the tools that the person who had made the video had got. And her tools were arranged down the side exactly the same as these are. They weren't the same looking. None of this looked the same. None of this looked the same. In fact, the Digitiser 10,000, which was the program I had, only had a few little tools, and I believe they were over here. Yeah, you'd got a couple of tools, 3 rows of them, and then you'd got things for auto-digitizing here. And that was about it. But it was enough. That and that little video. I made a beeline for the person whose name was on the video, discovered she owned a group, or was co-owner of a group, joined it, but of course her software wasn't my software. And I made the mistake so many people make. I thought I had to have software-specific instruction. I learnt afterwards, no, I didn't have to have that. But anyway, I joined the group, and she was very patient, very kind, very supportive. But she couldn't really help me, beyond saying, well, this is what I do in my software. I stayed with that lady because she was so supportive for a few months, and then I left the group. I'd also bought Mbird, and I'd opened that, and I'd gone, oh, what have I done here? That was a total nightmare. I didn't even have a Windows bar at the top. You know, no file, no edit, no machine, no external media, nothing like that. No view. I just couldn't follow any of it. But then I very slowly started to learn Digitiser 10,000. And as I made sense of that program, I was able to take what I learnt from there into Mbird, and I learnt the Mbird program. And I became quite proficient because I had that wonderful commodity that so many of you are so short of, and that was spare time. And then I thought to myself, where could I go when I first started? And my experience is still very raw in my memory. It still rankles. I had gone to the makers, and yes, in exchange for £70 a day, and in '96, £70 a day was quite a lot of money, and relocating to a city far away from where I lived, which meant I would have had to pay hotel bills, etc., which increased the costs. I would be offered about 4 hours a day if I was lucky. I've been on courses and I know exactly how much teaching time goes on, and I am an ex-teacher, so I knew I wasn't going to get my money's worth. Plus, I did not want to know how to learn to use auto-digitizing. I wanted to create my own designs. And I realized then when I got my Janome software, apart from this particular lady, there wasn't that much available to the Janome owners. So I started a small Yahoo group. And then from then, I've gone on and I've learned a great deal more, and I have shared everything I have learned. And that's why I do it. Because I couldn't find help when I first started. I couldn't find anybody to help me past go. I couldn't afford to go away for these residential courses. My husband and I weren't millionaires. We lived on a modest income, in a modest house, in a small country town. I had got 4 children, even though they were grown up. Let's face it, they never really grow up. We never stop worrying about them, and we continue to support them, foolish as it may be, but that's what we do. So I couldn't justify spending that amount of money to go away to learn something that I didn't really want to know. I also found that the consumables were extremely expensive, totally pathetic. When I first started, the only stabilizers you could get hold of were the very expensive small packs of tearaway. Well, tearaway used to do exactly what it said on the packet, tear away. I used all manner of things as a stabilizer because in my free motion embroidery I'd never had to use stabilizers. You might, if you were doing work on a very tender piece of fabric, use organza, voile, or even a fine cotton lawn as a stabilizer, but you certainly didn't use what we use now. So I turned to using interfacings, but of course that was a very expensive way of doing things. So over the years I've picked up little bits of information, stored a great deal of experience. I did an enormous amount of research and learning, and I shared what I learnt as I learnt it with my little group. And now I'm going to share with you what I'm learning about the new interim upgrade for the version 4 of the MBX software. I'm going to get rid of this awful picture of me. You see, I know I'm still only 35, but my photograph says, no, you're not. You're 70 years old, you're wrinkled, and you've got a lopsided face. What the heck? I can't see me. As I say, inside my head, I'm still a ravishing blonde, at least 7 foot tall, and as slim as beanpole, not my 12.5 stone little rotund body. Right, I'm going to get rid of her, and then I'll get rid of this.